Good evening, listeners. You're tuned in to the ghostly broadcast, Paranormal Station. I am your host, Timothy. For time immemorial, humankind has always wondered about the world beyond. From rituals of ancient times meant to commune with the dead to the investigators of the modern age with digital instruments. All have tried with varying degrees of success to engage with the spiritual realm. Sometimes it's nothing but smoke and mirrors. Theatrics meant to make us feel something. But occasionally, the spirit world engages. Tonight's testimonies come from such events in North America. Stay tuned, listener, and heed the warning. When you invite in the ghosts, they may accept. Our first testimony. Dear Timothy, you can call me Janet, but that's not my real name. For reasons I'll get to, and the fact that the studio I work for is undergoing serious litigation, I'd rather keep this ambiguous. I'm a story supervisor for one of those ghost hunter shows. The fact that we have a story supervisor should tell you everything you need to know about the ghosts that we're supposed to be hunting. They aren't real. At least they're not supposed to be. On this show, we had a medium called Sydney. She was a failed actress and openly admitted, off camera, to being a fraud. But she was good enough to seem convincing when the writers and I pulled all the strings anyway. That all changed when we ended up at this house out in Georgia. It was just an abandoned place that looked interesting to our location scouts. We made up some bullshit about murder and noise heard by the locals and set up to film. On the first day of shooting, Sydney walks down the hallway, doing her thing. "I'm sensing a coldness in here. Spirits, make yourselves known," she said with flowery flamboyance. As she did, a floorboard from the ceiling broke free and crashed to the floor right in front of her. "God damn it, cut!" the director yelled. "Get that safety guy in here. I want him fired." "Looks like they made themselves known, huh, Sydney?" I smirked. A few of us chuckled, and Sydney laughed along nervously. That night, we were filming the crew doing their investigations. They were putting up cameras and sensors. All their silly instruments were mainly just for show. Hell, most of the cameras weren't even on. We needed to get a few shots of Sydney doing her shtick, but none of us could find her. We all split off to look, and I checked the master bedroom. Sydney was sitting at an old vanity table with her back to me. "Sydney, we need you downstairs," I said. "She's a vain one, isn't she, Janet?" Sydney asked in a calm, cold tone I'd never heard her use before as I heard a slashing sound. "What are you talking about?" I asked. I approached her from behind. I couldn't make eye contact with her through the broken mirror, but I could see she was doing something to her face. It was like she was trying to scrape something off. "Sydney," she said, "she's just so very vain about her looks." "And why are you talking about yourself in the third person?" I asked. Sydney spun around to face me. Her face had been slashed and scarred. Blood oozed out of the deep gashes in her cheeks. The word whore had been crudely carved into her forehead. I gasped in shock and jumped back. "Because I think she needs to be taken down a peg," Sydney said, with a broad, wicked smile. "Wouldn't you agree, Janet?" I screamed and ran out of the room. I heard Sydney laughing maniacally. She didn't stop laughing, even when the paramedics tried to haul her under restraints into the ambulance. Since then, the show has been mothballed while the studio works out how to square this one. Sydney's family blamed the studio, while the studio is trying to pin it on her past addictions. As for me, I've been on sick leave trying to process just what the hell I saw. What could have made that poor woman do that to herself? Yours, Janet. Thank you for your testimony, Janet. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. An invitation extended can readily be accepted by anyone or anything. Our next testimony comes from Blake in Kentucky. Dear Timothy, my name is Blake. I started my senior year of high school in the fall, and I'm already preparing for college. There was one thing I had to resolve before leaving this town for good, something that would have haunted me if I never got to the bottom. The disappearance of my best friend David. He'd gone missing years prior when we were still in middle school, and I'd always believed that it was partially my fault. It was my idea to go exploring. I wanted to see what was in that old house. Even though everyone in town, bar his parents, had given up the search, it is technically still an open case. No one knows what happened to him. So, feeling like I owed it to him, I emailed some paranormal investigators. Surprisingly, they responded. "So this is the place it happened?" asked the director when I led the team to the old house on the west side of town. "It's the last place I saw him." I convinced him it would be fun to check it out, I said guiltily. "What's the story behind it?" he asked while the crew set up their equipment. "No one knows. At least no one my age. This isn't really a popular part of town," I explained. We all went inside, and the TV crew started to set up their cameras and monitors. I showed them the living room. "David put his hand right there," I said, pointing at the old fireplace. Then he pulled his hand away like he'd burnt it. His hand was all black. We both walked home, and then he was never seen again, I explained. I don't know how many of them actually believed me, but not one of them went near the fireplace after I'd told them that. After sundown, the crew were filming and monitoring their camera feeds. I don't understand the gadgets they were using, but they seemed to be genuinely looking for evidence of spirits. When nothing happened, I was starting to feel stupid, as if I'd wasted their time. "Ouch!" one of the cameramen yelled, dropping his camera and shaking his hand like he'd touched a hot pan. Then another person yelped, more crew members, the director, and then even me. We all looked down at our hands. They were black as soot, like they'd been thrust into a pile of coals. "What the fuck is this?" the director asked me. "I don't know," I yelled in defense. Suddenly, there was a shout and a whooshing sound. Then another. People would shout out, and then their screams were quickly muffled out an instant later, but I couldn't see what was happening. I turned to see the director. The black soot on his hand enveloped his whole body. For a brief moment he screamed as his body turned into a black silhouette. Then he faded from existence altogether. I sprinted out of the house. There was no one else left but me. I looked down at my hand, expecting to be taken any second. But the black shadow on my hand moved slowly and deliberately. It felt like icy tentacles as it crawled up my forearm and began to form letters. "Feed me more," it spelled. "Yours, Blake." Thank you for your testimony, Blake. There are things in this world that we don't understand. Some require careful and respectful study. Others are better off not knowing at all. I can only hope for the best for you. Our next testimony is from Michael in Minnesota. Dear Timothy, there was a time in my life when I was a religious man. More so than most, I'd been ordained in the Catholic faith. I'd always been inspired by the battle between good and evil and was keen to do my part in the fight, to contend on the side of good. It was mostly dull. As a demonological investigator, it was my job to determine whether possessions were genuine. For the majority of cases, they aren't. They are, rather tragically, a lot of very unwell people in desperate need of help. My last investigation, though, destroyed my faith entirely. A 3-year-old boy had been displaying characteristics of possession at a rural trailer park in Minnesota. Born to a single mother who wasn't well versed in the faith, every other avenue had been exhausted on the poor boy. Now it was the church his mother had turned to. I confessed my sins and traveled to the home to meet the boy. He'd only just started saying his first sentences. Then he starts coming out with all these big words. He calls me a whore over and over again. I just don't know who else to turn to for help, the mother explained, half sobbing. When I walked into the boy's bedroom, he sat up with his eyes closed in meditation. "Begone, Michael. You are not needed here," he said in a calm voice. "Your mother seems to disagree," I said matter-of-factly. "The whore doesn't understand," he spoke softly. "The Lord teaches us to honor thy mother," I said. "Do not quote the word of the Lord to me, child. I helped him write it," he said, opening his eyes. "So you are an angel?" I asked rhetorically. "You would mock a servant of the Lord who ordained you priest?" he asked. "You have confessed your sins to him, and I have seen each one." I furrowed my brow and stared into his eyes. I pulled out a small vial of holy water and splashed it on him. He didn't even flinch. "Satisfied, Michael?" he asked. "What do you want with this child?" I asked. "I will make this wretched child a vessel through the Holy Spirit," he said. "And what of the child?" I asked. "His soul is inconsequential. His flesh is all that is required," he said nonchalantly. "But he is innocent. He is a child," I shouted. "None of you creatures are innocent. You are tainted with the original sin against your Lord," he said. "Then I shall baptize him," I offered. The boy rose in the air, levitating above his bed with his arms outstretched. Brilliant white light shone from all around him. "You shall not," he boomed in a deep, earth-shattering voice. "You shall kneel before the Almighty, ever-living God. Behold and fear him." A gale of wind blew through the room as the light became brighter. My ears rang with deafening noise until, suddenly, a loud boom blew through the house, and the light was extinguished. The boy had disappeared along with whatever entity had possessed him. The mother was left without her child, and the boy was never seen again. For the following weeks, I wrestled with my faith. I tried prayer, but it felt like my prayers were falling on the ears of that angel who had taken that innocent boy. When I asked my bishop for advice, he told me to not dwell on the Lord's mysteries. The more I thought, the more I realized that dwelling was all I could do. Had I spent my entire life serving these entities that treat mankind as pawns on a chessboard? I threw away my collar and left the faith shortly after, unable to reconcile the truth laid bare to me. Yours, Michael. Thank you for your honest testimony, Michael. You have my condolences for losing your faith, but do not despair. Humanity has left its mark on all planes of existence, and our influence is widely felt. It is little wonder that supernatural entities are so interested in us. Our final testimony of the evening comes from Bill in New York. Dear Timothy, I want to start by saying I'm a skeptic. I'm sure that I will be until the day I die, but there are some things out there that are beyond explanation. In my line of work, you have to keep an open mind, right? I've been a detective for the NYPD for a decade now. One thing I'll tell you is that you can never see it all. there is always room to be surprised. This time in particular was one such case. It was a double homicide, husband and wife. The killer or killers had strung both of them to the bed and slashed their throats. They had no enemies, no one with any reasonable motive. We had no working theories. That was until the wife's sister came into the picture when she burst onto the scene. Two of the unis barely noticed her as she charged into the scene. For fuck's sake, could someone control the goddamn scene? I shouted. Detective, she yelled as the unis moved to grab her. I think I know who killed my sister and brother-in-law. Ma'am, this is a crime scene, I shouted in response. Get her out of here. She wrestled free of the uniformed officers and headed for the nightstand. She reached into the drawer and pulled out a square black card with the letter U stenciled in white. You've seen this before, haven't you? She pleaded. I stared in shock at the calling card. You're under arrest, I said sternly. Back at the station, I had her in the interview room. She waived her right to counsel, so I immediately questioned her. So, Gladys, right? I asked her. How did you know about the calling card in the room? It doesn't matter, Gladys sighed. Of course, it matters. You busted into the bedroom where your sister and her husband were murdered and pointed us to a crucial piece of evidence. One that connects to a lot of cold cases, I might add. You don't see how that might look suspicious? I asked rhetorically. Gladys nodded, then turned to one side as if someone was whispering in her ear. You recognized the symbol, didn't you? She asked. I can take you to him, she said softly with her eyes down. Who? I asked. My sister's killer. The one you and your partner were looking for. The one he almost found, she whispered. With no other leads, I reluctantly let her lead me to some abandoned warehouses in the Bronx. She guided me through the place with her hands cuffed behind her back. She didn't seem nervous or apprehensive. She just wandered through in a kind of sad daze, like she'd done it all before. She turned around and shushed me while we approached a door. He's armed. Don't give him a chance. He won't give either of us one, she warned me in a hushed whisper. I drew my gun, kicked in the door, and saw a hooded man hunched over in a chair. He turned, grabbing a handgun from the table. I fired twice and watched him fall to the floor. As I walked over towards him, Gladys started to speak. He's dead. He's finally dead. He didn't think he would die. And now he's screaming, she said. Her face grimacing like someone was shouting in her ears. What? I asked. He's surrounded by them all, and he's scared. They're all tearing at him. It's so loud in here. Gladys yelled before she ran out the door. After backup arrived, Gladys was sitting on the hood of my car. We found it all. Murder weapons, calling cards, everything, I said. How did you know? I asked. You'd never believe me, Gladys sighed. I turned to walk away when she stopped me. It was Greg, wasn't it? She asked. Your partner? Ha! How do? I stammered. He's proud of you, she said with a smile before she got up and left. I haven't seen her again since, Timothy. She's made herself scarce, and that's probably for the best. I just hope she takes care of herself. Yours sincerely, Bill. Thank you for your testimony, Bill. Though it is rare and comes as more of a curse than a gift, occasionally the dead can find their messengers to right the wrongs in the world they've left behind. That concludes this evening's testimonies. I'm Timothy, and you have been listening to Ghostly Broadcast, Paranormal Station. If you enjoyed this evening's broadcast and would like to be notified of when our next ones go live, then like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon. You'll greatly support our work to document and catalog the paranormal by collecting testimonies from around the globe. Have a good evening, listeners, and take care. Tread carefully around the world and the paranormal planes that lie parallel to it.